a graduate in dairy technology and a rural management professional from the 18th batch of PRN. He is the founder of Access Livelihoods Group and is currently managing its affairs as Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer. His predominant interest has been to support emergence of self-reliant and self-governed enterprises owned by women producers, building livelihood programs by combining grant, equity and debt resources, developing innovative and viable enterprise solutions, mitigating livelihood stress for communities, and to reimagine the possibility of extending higher education options for the dropouts. He spearheaded the development of India's first all-women cooperative dairy union. Today, Mullukanur Women's Cooperative Dairy Union is a ₹100 crore enterprise owned and managed by 21,000 women. Please welcome Sri G.V. Krishna Gopal.
Good afternoon. Honorable guests, members of IRMA Society who have ensured consistency in IRMA's program and have set the right framework, current and ex-board directors of IRMA who have governed the institute and ensured that the institute doesn't traverse the boundaries that have been set by the members of the society, current and ex-directors of IRMA who have set the benchmark in institutional leadership, current and ex-faculty of IRMA who have helped the rural management curriculum to evolve to what it is today, young IRMA graduates, and of course 3,150 alumni who are here. I would not end this statement without mentioning the support staff at IRMA who have ensured that the lawns are as green as possible from the time when I have left this institute 2 decades back. So congratulations to all of these people for the 40 years that have been for the institute. While those whom I have addressed are the key visible stakeholders of IRMA, I am sure there are many more contributors who have worked hard to make this IRMA story really great as it is today. Sage Valmiki said that it is inappropriate to not to be thankful or grateful of contributions done by squirrels in the construction of large Setu by the monkey friends of Lord Rama. Metaphorical it might be, but it is important that we together really thank all those who have made small but important contributions to the IRMA's evolution on this occasion. I request all of you to give us this time. Maybe it is not loud enough. As a Hindu, I would say, as my identity, we need to be loud enough to thank, so much so that the 5 elements, the air, water, fire, earth and space, do record in their memory. So may I request to be loud enough? So thank you all for making IRMA what it is today. A wonderful institute, maybe definitely one, the list of 7 wonderful learning institutes of the world. If it is there, probably IRMA is there in that list. At least personal level, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Verghese Kurian, who visualized the need of this institute and developed this with grandeur. Or I would say, a masterpiece that he has built the way an artist would build one. For the 1 lakh that I paid, or so that I paid as fees at that time, probably IRMA has offered much more than that. Maybe 20 times, I don't know how to value that. 97.99, the fees were still 1 lakh at that time. And if I take the economic and social benefits that has accrued to me over a period of time, this part of dimension has been added by a course that we used to have, something called as social and economic valuation, right? If I were to say that probably I am more indebted to the institute than I can actually value it. 2 ways, principally, the institute has contributed to me. One is that I determined my life's journey based on the learnings that I got from the institute. Second, I was also gifted a beautiful wife. She is also an IRMA graduate. She is from CRM 23, that is 2002 and 2004, and she herself is an accomplished person today. She promotes weavers collectives and producer companies, those which are running self-sustainably and profitably. So I am actually being very lucky, having passed out from the Institute of Rural Management, that one can actually get the life's direction and probably the partner. So all those who are couples here, please be happy. Go ahead and commit to yourself. You will not regret. So it's a phenomenal journey that you will get. Cherishable one, not a painful one. So go ahead, please commit. Go ahead and find your partners. I would like to thank the Institute's faculty, many of whom I would like to name them, but I will run out of time. But I mentioned Professor Bhatt, Professor Raju, Professor Krishnamurthy, Professor Leela Patel, Professor Ajit Kanetkar, Professor Shailendra, Professor Biswas, and the list goes on. So these people have really shaped, while Dr. Kurian set the direction, these people have set the nut and bolts for my direction. And I'm really thankful to them. 2 days back, before I came to the stage, I said probably I will not get enough time to thank everyone. So I actually sent out a note acknowledging more than 110 alumni who have been supporting Access Livelihood Group to emerge as what it is doing today in the country. The cause is important, and we are really thankful that IRMA's alumni has backed us up all this way. I wouldn't hesitate to use this platform to state that we at Access Livelihood Group aspire that it becomes a symbol of the collective effort of IRMA alumni and a true tribute to Verghese Kurian's ideals, vision and mission. We are confident of traveling the road less traveled and establishing AIL Group as an impactful social enterprise. IRMA at 40 is definitely a pride and will continue to be an inspirational institute, not only to the 3,150 alumni, but for generations to come because the unique value system it injects into its graduate. So in the next 20 minutes, to contribute a few thoughts on the role of IRMA is definitely an honor and more importantly a responsibility. I hope to live up to this expectation and responsibility and definitely would not want to add some more debt to my account that I am already indebted. Probably I will do the justice. At 44, I would say personally, I have just completed half of my life journey of 100 years. Actually, very few humans are blessed 100 years. Incidentally, my grandfather is 99 and next year is going to be 100 years. I may not live as much as he would live, but I am sure that touching that mark is less important. But for IRMA, is 100 years a sufficient time for it to visualize? Or is it a short time? It can definitely aspire to get into the Guinness Book of World Records. And according to Guinness Book of World Records, the oldest higher education institute in the world is University of Carouine in Morocco. It is 1,150 years old and still functional. Can IRMA aim to be there in thousands of years? With the strong foundation and taking tipping point perspective of Malcolm Gladwell, once a critical mass is built, the achievements can only exponentially grow. And if I were to see IRMA as 1,000-year-old institution, then probably we are still to lay a reasonable foundation, both at physical and metaphysical levels. And we have still not reached the tipping point. The critical mass is still under development. Maybe IRMA has not reached the tipping point, but I wonder what that critical mass would have achieved, given that 3,150 alumni and all those associated with IRMA have done so well in the past few decades and have achieved substantially. Speaking right after me is Mr. Sodhi. Of course, no one needs to speak about him. He has made wonderful growth story of Amul. And similar are the achievements of Mr. Vivekananda with Fisher Folk, Mr. Sivkumar with farmers, Mr. Muralidhar with SHGs and SHG federations. So the list goes on. The achievers are many. And IRMA alumni have already carved a niche for themselves. So my doubt remains that for a 1,000-year institution that IRMA is going to be, what will be the critical mass, and more importantly, what will be the critical mass that will establish before the exponential growth? What is it that they are going to establish? It's beyond my imagination. It's the institute stakeholders who have to determine what we want to collectively aim for, 100 years or 1,150 years. Or maybe just, can I ask you to show your hands? Should we go for 1,150 years? There's somebody who's raising two hands. Should we go for 1,150 years or 100 years? 1,150? Doubtful? Doubtful? Sir, you have more responsibility on your shoulders, sir. Many hands up, so you have a lot more responsibility on you. The topic given to us today is IRMA at 40. How can institutes like IRMA contribute to nation building? And if I'm permitted to make a small modification, it should have actually read, how can IRMA contribute to shape world order or developing a better world for everyone? Of course, we are at a time when we suddenly see nationalism is on rise, and there is no harm in aspiring to be a global world order leader in tough times. More importantly, academic institutes like IRMA are supposed to be ism neutral. In the last few decades, we have increasingly seen porous borders for capital, material, technology, commodities, facilitated by trade unification, and probably also by information technology revolution. But is it not time for humans to aspire to have porous borders so that all of us can live together? We become a universal being. So how far is it justified to think about a nation? Do we still want to nurture our own animal instincts? That territorial integrity becomes more important? I am sure we have to give a thought. Because I am saying that because we are in an era where challenges are all integrated. They are not in isolation. Challenges are not limited to national boundaries. They are for the humanity to face. Take any challenge, climate change, look at racism, look at casteism, discrimination in form of gender. Any of these are not particular to a particular region, but are universal in the world. So therefore, we need to think twice before we talk about IRMA at the national level. Or do we want IRMA to be visualized at somebody who's shaping the world order? It is important because the future, as portrayed in the movie Matrix, some of you who would have seen Matrix, there, for the first time there was a visualization that the machine is going to take control or the order over the humans. And beautifully in that, the hero actually tries to draw inspiration from himself. In fact, there is a scene where they show that the person comes to India and seeks the inspiration from inside to overcome the machines. So, if Matrix is a reality in the future, then probably it is better that we talk about universal being and not about nationalism and India any longer. So, probably the topic should have been, what is IRMA going to contribute to the world order? And what is this world order? The world order has to be different. While management education talks about homogeneity, and homogeneity which is driven everywhere, because we want everything standardized. We go to the other country, we want the same McDonald's, we want the same pizzas everywhere, we want the structures to be same, we want the symbols to be same, we want the cultures to be the same, everything. Management education talks about standardization for efficiency. But I feel that while homogeneity is important, there is certain part of theory of management which talks about portfolio and importance of diversity. It is important to remember that homogeneity is, while important, diversity is important for survival. And it is important that we protect diversity even as we become a universal being. So management education, which can give the confidence to the students that they can both operate in homogeneous, standardized life as well as in diverse backgrounds, is the quality of education that is one requires. Can IRMA give that perspective to the students, is the question. The sector from which I come, which is the development sector, lot of cliched opinions about it. But it thrives on difference. We as marketeers in these people, we always say that my land is different, my people are different, my communities are different, my language is different, my program is different, my people are different, culture is different, everything is different. And I think we overplay that so that we can get some few donor money come up. But all said and done, there is a uniqueness. While uniqueness exists, there is also a homogeneity or universal soul. The universal soul which binds all these together. And that we have to realize that we are a small part of this universal soul. So how do we actually create graduates who value this universal soul while respecting the individual identity and differences that exist within ourselves? Is the critical thing that the management education has to visualize. Only when we develop such balanced view of life, we can together solve challenges. The balance and harmony will help us visualize possibilities rather than get bogged down by issues. I hope IRMA, as an institute, is able to steer the management discourse to visualize such new world. Before I further share my thoughts, I thought I will quote great poet Tagore to seek an inspiration for the world order, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not broken into narrow fragments by narrow domestic walls, where the words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by the ever-widening thought and action into that heaven freedom, my father, let my country awake. So that was the thoughts of Tagore, and probably IRMA does better to propagate that thought. While I would like to dwell deeper on the world order, I would also like to do justice to the topic to cover the ground in depth. So if I were to see possibilities for IRMA's contribution, I see them emerging in 4 distinct areas. First, the steering the management discourse. Second, instilling self-binding order among course participants for a transformed self. Third, redefine learning for many institutes to replicate. Fourth, focus on impact on communities. Steering the management discourse. While management as practice existed ever since ever civilization, it was well articulated around the time of Industrial Revolution. From pre-scientific to classical theory to new classical theories, management has always evolved in some or other context of ecosystem. The Western world has dominated the evolution of management sciences, and we continue to look at them for guidance to steer management discourse. I am reminded that IRMA has structured its curriculum from Harvard Business School, and it continues to draw partnerships from Michigan State University to many other universities to draw lessons from us. We still look for the Western world, but probably it is time to really understand the dominance of the Western thoughts. It probably is time to also understand that the management discourse has to draw a lot more from the Eastern thoughts. And it's also probably the time, for IRMA to look at original research and figure out what are these eternal principles of management. There isn't something like that. Maybe it is a good idea for IRMA to write eternal principles of management. The eternal principles of management, there is enough precedence to indicate that scientific elevations have limitations, as it ignores the knowledge that is visible due to what we call perceptual intelligence. Therefore, astrology, rituals, vastu, religious texts are often criticized as superstitious and are esoteric. This we are doing at a grave danger, I believe, for humanity. It is clear that as artificial intelligence evolves, the first thing that will get replaced is the cognitive intelligence of the humans. But the last thing that will get replaced is the perceptive intelligence of the humans. So if we do not integrate the perceptive intelligence of the humans into the management education, we are going to be in a grave danger for that. So the Eastern world has long actually discovered this part of perceptual intelligence, and it has interpreted life in a much more different way. What are these eternal principles of management? And I will leave 4 or 5 points for that to figure out what is the eternal principles. And here I am trying to borrow from the deep research on behavior, human existence and life that has been done by the sages of our country. To me, the following thing summarizes the management principles that every graduate should understand. That there is a universal life cycle. As management graduates, we are all taught, probably in a marketing course, that there is a product life cycle. In an organization development course, we are taught about an organizational life cycle. But while I wonder this, while the entire text talks about this life cycle, we never taught that the universal cycle, which is represented by Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh, the Trimurtis, are always existent in everything that is around us. The Trimurtis actually was conceptualized with the idea that all the three phases are very critical and important. But somehow in management, we tend to ignore and underestimate both the stage at Brahma, where Brahma is, and probably even Shiva. We hardly want to discuss about Shiva, the destructive phase. But if I were to narrate my own experience as an entrepreneur, and this we are doing with a great danger, because when we started this organization, Access Livelihood Group, I hardly visualized the pain that is involved in trying to build an institution or an organization. But if you look at the time immemorial and the knowledge that the people have passed down to the mothers always, the preparation that is required for a child to emerge out in the world has been well documented in the Eastern world. There is a lot of preparation. We undervalue that in the management sciences. Maybe it's time to understand that the preparation that is required for creation is much more in-depth than what we can think about preparing a small Excel sheet here and there and trying to prepare a business plan for the entire thing. It has to be much more in-depth. The same is the issue that when we manage exits, there were more than 200 people who passed out who have worked with us in our organization. And probably only one disgruntled employee. That this one disgruntled employee is good enough for us because he goes on to file a case in the labor court. And for the last 3 years, I have visited the court for more than 25 times, just addressing that one disgruntled employee. So exits have to be managed much more carefully. They have to be managed and dealt with emotions much more neutral, in a balanced way. And probably evolving that balanced life for the student is more critical. And whether management gives that kind of balance is the key question that one has to think about. The second is discovering purpose and staying committed to that purpose. And when we talk about purpose, strategic management says that you have to have a vision, values, strategies, all this, everything very nice, very good. But one deep question that we forget is that how do we discover a purpose for ourselves as a person we are? This, again, the Eastern world has taught us much more deeply because it talks about meditation, it talks about reflection, it talks about tapasya, it talks about yogic practices. And we often discount these practices to figure out what is internally the call for us. But we would like to go on to keep writing the vision, strategies, values everywhere. So is that sufficient to really solve the strife that is there in the world? Do we really have to figure out what is the purpose within ourselves? And that is the key question that one has to organize. The third is recognizing systems thinking and interconnectedness. While Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People interprets human journey as transition from dependent, independent and interdependent relationship, and Peter Sage's 5th discipline talks about systems thinking, both fall short that they do not stress enough in the modesty that is required for management graduate to perceive and harness the power of interconnectedness. It is time that the management science adopt that what Paulo Coelho recommended in Alchemist and even better articulated by Deepak Chopra in the 7 spiritual laws of success as law of least effort. And I quote that the law of least effort recommends observing and learning from nature. And nature's intelligence functions effortlessly, frictionlessly, spontaneously. It is not linear, it is intuitive, holistic and nourishing. How do management graduates learn this something from it? That is something which IRMA has to really explore. Preparing for constant evolution. Typically, the multidimensional life is interpreted through a limited variables in linear programming. I hope linear programming is still taught in statistics in management sciences. Yes, and it says that life can be interpreted with few variables, but it's not true. What I understood is that as I grew the organization from 10,000 rupee investment to what it is today at around 6 crores, not a big number, but 6 crores is the investment today in our organization. Managing 15 lakhs as a turnover in the first year to probably 9 crores, not like Mr. Sodhi managing 35,000 crores. Working with co-founders, 4 of them, when we started, all of them are IRMA graduates, we are 81 now. And working with few hundred households to 18,500 households with whom we work today, all women households. I didn't narrate to get a class. I was narrating it that the tremendous amount of revisualization that each time I had to do, it is multidimensional. And it is definitely not something which can be interpreted in linear programming. It requires a modesty to be developed. That every time you go back to the drawing board, visualize something new, understand that things which have worked in the past are not going to work for the future. It is to be revisualized multiple times. Do we have that strength in the management graduates as to go back and go back and go back and see and revise? So this constant change, what has worked as a small entrepreneur no longer works for us. And men constantly going back to the drawing board and visualizing things from a fresh perspective and new realities. It requires tremendous resilience and subdued ego to really keep discovering. And that I am not sure whether the curriculum teaches. While the list can go on, I would again restrain myself from exploring further this dimension, but would like to summarize this at this point that management sciences need to rapidly accept learning that emerge from perceptual intelligence. Again, I am using the word perceptual intelligence, which is far discounted than the cognitive intelligence alone. Cognitive intelligence is going to take us only a little further, but the real knowledge is beyond cognitive intelligence and at the perceptual intelligence level. So, the Eastern world understood that journey, that the true journey is only internal, it is not at all external. So, while the ecosystem will keep continuing to harp about skills that one has, I would suggest that we shouldn't stop there, but we should go one step further and look within ourselves to draw the inspiration, to discover ourselves fully. IRMA's own ex-faculty, Professor Subhash Sharma, in his book Management in New Age, Western Windows and Eastern Doors, 2006 it was published, has beautifully summarized the need for synthesizing Western and Eastern concepts of management sciences to evolve and accept perception intelligence as integral component. Now I move to the second point. The second point is about instilling self-binding order among course participants with a transformed self. Talking about self-internal journey, one of our units within the AIL group, which is the Access Livelihood Academy, IRMA has been kind enough to support it, to start it. In fact, Professor Bhatt has been fully supporting the programs that we are trying to evolve. It is contemplating designing higher education programs for the school dropouts and semi-literate communities. One of the design elements that we are experimenting in the academy is to bring a strong focus on self-transformation. And why self-transformation is key? Because creation happens twice. First in the mind of the creator, and next it comes in the external manifestation. And if the mind is disturbed, it is not harmonious with the nature, it is not harmonious with the more people around, it will only create more disharmony. It will not create a balanced worldview, a world order that we all aspire to have. So what does this transformed self look like? It looks like, focuses on Dharma, and the Vice President was talking about that a mango tree never questions itself why it has to produce mangoes. But it does that as part of its duty, as part of its existence. That it is natural that we all have to do our work. It is ever energetic. The transformed self is always ever energetic. It doesn't want tea and coffees in between. Probably. Does it want? I don't know. It doesn't want it. So it depends on, doesn't depend on external motivation factors. We are all taught motivation very well in human resource. But it draws inspiration from within, from the energy that is there within ourselves. It is not depressed with comparisons. Comparisons is the order, competition, comparisons, it's very important. but it appreciates the unique existence and unique role that each one individual that we have to play in this world. So, values do contribute not by measures of scales like quantity and quality, but values which are based on respect that the uniqueness that one has. So, it is constant evolution and reflective learning that is more important. And it also practices integral living. And integral living, that third, thought, word and action are all matched up. And most importantly, as we as an institute, we believe that it is not survival of the fittest that is important, but it is the survival of the weakest whom we want to support. So that is the kind of management, self-transformation that the management education has to work well. The third important part is the redefining the learning. And I would say that very clearly, classroom education is going to be outdated. We have to realize that classroom education is going to be outdated, and Mr. Shivkumar had also told about this in the morning, that experiential learning is going to be the key. And we have to probably readjust. We are lucky that we had fieldwork and all those segments, but having that 20% is not going to be sufficient. The future is going to be about 50-60% of experiential learning. Because many stalwarts, industrial stalwarts, are complaining that despite so many years of education, people cannot write properly, speak properly, do work in a systematic way. And probably practice will help them to make things much more perfect. It is just not enough that we learn from Tao that is given to us, right? But we have to learn from videos, probably games, probably many more innovative ways in which people are learning today, probably from movies. So the classroom-based teaching is going to, my thinking is it's going to be another 2 decades, after which classroom learning is going to be really relevant. So IRMA can be ahead of the cycle, redefine the learning, probably discover new ways to learn, and then many institutions would copy it. The final thing that I wanted to speak was focus on communities. Much of management was focused on business and profit, but the clear differentiator that IRMA brought in was that people are important. But probably it is time that along with the people, we also talk about the planet. And it's time to look at 3 dimensions rather than single dimension of bottom of the pyramid. Right? So while IRMA continues to explore possibilities within the rural boundary, it is time also to include the urban boundaries. And Anita had spoken about it in the morning. That the rural and urban is a continuum, and we cannot ignore the relationship between these two things. So, if you were to redefine itself, it can probably redefine itself as development management. The focus on communities offers a unique proposition for IRMA and also offers challenges to evolve solutions for the inequity and poverty prevalent in many communities across the country and probably the world. Progress and wealth for few is not definitely a conducive setting for a harmonious society and human existence. So the relevance of IRMA's curriculum is going to become more important. Much of the focus in the past centuries in management education has been on sectors, industries and functions. And again I am saying this is important to recognize that we talk too much about functions, we talk about sectors and this one. But probably IRMA's stand and the USP, which is to talk about people and the planet, is going to be more important. And that's going to be the management discourse in the future that is going to happen. So to conclude, I would like to end my speech with a specific mention on what has IRMA gifted me. Actually, it has given much more strength than what I imagined. It helped me to manage development of India's first all-women farmers-owned dairy cooperative, that is the Mulkanur Women's Cooperative Dairy Union. This dairy has got the President's Award, and it has also has a turnover of 118 crores last year, making a surplus of around 32 crores, passing on the bonus to the country. These 21,000 women have tripled their income. And based on that, we went on to create more such kind of stories. Subsequently, we and Murali, who is going to speak subsequently, we worked in a project called the District Poverty Initiatives Program. And I was able to manage Rice Credit Line, which was to be managed for 1 lakh women. So that is what IRMA has contributed. And more importantly, in the recent past, it has given me the strength to create and visualize what Access Livelihoods Group can do in the future. At this platform, I would like to state in October 2020, we are hoping to launch a true tribute to Dr. Kurian. We are calling that as Operations Beehive, again inspired from the Operations Flood. We want to work with 1 million women and create 40 producer companies across 40 districts, each one with 25,000 women, and create agro-processing economic zones, each one with an investment of 30 to 40 crores. We are in the process of mobilizing 1,200 crores to make this happen. We are nowhere near there. We are just at 100 crores right now. But we definitely hope to have the strength to really go to that 1,200 crores. And that, I feel, is a gift that IRMA has given to me. So, I thank once again the Institute, the IRMA family. I thank everyone here for the patient hearing that they have given. And I would recollect the 5 points that I told. That the dream beyond, we should dream beyond the notion of and focus on developing the world order. Steer the management discourse to a new paradigm based on eternal principles of management, combining the Eastern perception and intelligence and the cognitive intelligence. Focus on transforming the self of participants while building managerial skills. Redefine learning to focus on practice orientation and create multiple avenues for learning, and finally continue the deep focus on communities while expanding to include the concern for planet. Pragmatists may say that this is a model which is probably utopian in order, but I would say that as an academic institution, it should dare to think beyond. It should think in the future. And when we think in the future, we create more wealth, we create more prosperity. So with that aim, I would just invoke Kabir. And Kabir said, while we grow, we should not forget that बड़े हुए तो क्या हुआ, जैसे पेड़ खजूर, पंथी को छाया नहीं, फल लगे अति दूर. So maybe IRMA will not be like that. Thank you.